So I wanted to do a reaction to Bob Larson's interview with James Mason that was about a year ago, and I wanted to make sure that I got it correct, okay? Because this is not something you want to misspeak on, especially when you're being vehemently harassed like I am and picked apart by mental health professionals on a daily basis that are harassing you and trying to get you locked up. So, my reaction to James Mason's interview with Bob Larson. Okay, I find, frankly, it's disturbing to see two older gentlemen, each believing that they speak for the Almighty. In some respects, I was happy to see that Mr. Mason was still making sense by comparison to Bob Larson. Of course, everybody makes sense compared to Bob Larson because he's a kook. I said, I am also somewhat happy that he has seemed to have embraced a monism, meaning a concept where God is one. I don't think he's accepted a pantheistic concept yet, but I'm glad that he's embraced a monism in place of Satanism. I'm happy with that. Okay, what's unpleasant is that the type of extremism being promoted by Mr. Mason lends room for radical liberals like Bob Larson to demonize the reason and sensibility of white civil rights and make it appear like there is no path forward except revolution. This is incorrect and damaging to white Americans and is what fuels the justification of government attacks against the white working poor. If you remember, under Trump, they declared white people to be the number one threat to this country. Ultimately, I find Mr. Mason and his ideas harmful towards the future of white America. Okay, and white Americans. So this is the interview, and I want everyone to watch this interview. I think it's a good interview, and I think people need to watch this interview. Okay, so watch it. Now, James Mason proves why we have a First Amendment. People like Mr. Mason prove why we have a First Amendment. Mr. Mason is extremely important to the health of our society. Because if people like Mr. Mason were not allowed to say the things that Mr. Mason was saying, you wouldn't have people like me saying the things that I'm saying. Okay, and that's what you need to understand. Mr. Mason is indispensable to the health of our society, and his ability to speak and have the right to speak and the right to publish books is indispensable to the health of our society. So steps to peaceful resistance to anti-white culture. Okay, so number one, focus on self-care and obey the 8 laws of health. So I've gone over the 8 laws of health enough to make people nauseous, I think, but nutrition. So make good daily nutritional choices. I would recommend at the very least adhering to a diet that is that's identical to an omnivorous Adventist diet. Okay, what that means is only your clean meats, according to the Bible. Okay, and only in moderation, and also eating your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, and things of that nature. Okay, so you can see, pick things like unprocessed grains, skin-on potatoes, nuts, and fruit. This will provide, of course, don't eat anything you're allergic to. If you can, get an allergy test. You can order an allergy test from Life Extension. I'll be doing that in the near future. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a physician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a DO. I'm not an MD. I'm not an ND. I'm not a nurse. I'm not an LPN. I'm not an RN. I'm not a nurse practitioner. I'm not a physical therapist, not a nutritionist, not a dietitian, nothing like that. But I think it's prudent to get an allergy test if you can and to avoid foods that you're allergic to. So cut back on salt. And that's a caveat there because I found that I didn't have the ability to cut back on salt. It's just most people eat so much salt that that's a good idea. Cut back on sugar. Cut back on fat, but make sure you're cutting back primarily on saturated fats. Okay, not just fat, saturated fats. Eat a hearty breakfast, a light lunch, and a quick dinner. Be cautious while combining meals. Avoid well, this you don't have to really worry about. Don't fall for that food combining stuff. The human body is an amazing system. Okay, I'm going to move on here. So this is in my playlist. This is a gentleman, Minister Scharfenberg. Well, he's not a minister, he's a physician, a very good physician. He helped to create the 7 Ways to Prevent Heart Disease, and I highly recommend people watch his videos, okay? But more importantly, watch these videos, okay, where he talks about how to promote health and how to prevent disease. Number 2, call out anti-white racism wherever you see it. People see what I'm doing with Lenape Valley and Bucks County, who are participating in anti-white racism against the public, and I call it out. Everyone needs to call out anti-white racism wherever they see it, okay? And this is the thing. I'm not even like some kind... I'm not anywhere near as I'm not what you think I am. I haven't been a white separatist or even a white supremacist since I founded this channel. My view is, as a former white separatist, is that white people should have the right to exist as they are, the right to reproduce their genetic heritage, okay? I'm not even, this is what's funny, I'm not even against race mixing. Ideally, I would have an East Indian girl or a Hispanic girl or somebody like that, because frankly, number one, I'm just tired of unkept, mouthy, feminist white women. That's just the truth. And the thing is, like, the so-called, the more indoctrinated they are, the more mouthy they are, the more aggressively they hate white men. White women hate white men. What they're calling the Karen phenomenon. But it's the truth. White women hate white men. Most of my situation at Lenape Valley, I think, can be explained by gynocentrism in the white female community, the white leftist female community. But it's not just white leftist females. Look at white conservative females like Sarah Palin, okay? Or, I'm trying to think of others off the top of my head. Sarah Palin, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all these supposedly empowered females. They are aggressively anti-white, okay? Then, look at somebody like Michelle Malkin, okay? Watch Michelle Malkin's lecture that got her banned from Airbnb. Look up Michelle Malkin, the speech that got me banned from Airbnb. Michelle Malkin is not white. She's brown. Michelle Malkin is not anti-white. An educated white woman, exactly like her, everything like her except white, is vehemently anti-white. And it's truly disgusting. In fact, I think I'm going to link Michelle Malkin's lecture in this right under number 2 here when I post this in the description of my video so that people can see it. Okay? And my other thing is to promote a sound, reasonable basis for white civil rights. Okay? The fact of the matter is, white people deserve to exist. White people deserve self-determination. White people deserve to not associate with other people if they don't want to. Okay? And not be called bad names for it. Okay? And I'm not somebody, like I said, I don't mind marrying and procreating with an East Indian girl. Okay? I'm not some kind of kook. I never was. Be consistent. This is the thing, be consistent. Call out anti-white racism wherever you see it. And call it out in a sound, reasonable way. Be peaceful. Be respectful, or as respectful as you possibly can. Never be violent, ever. Never be violent, ever. Now, that comes with a caveat. You do have a right to self-preservation, and that needs to be understood. Now, what I mean by that is you have a right to defend your personal life against an immediate threat to your life. That's your right as an American. It varies differently from state to state and territory to territory, but you have a right to the preservation of your life. Okay? Now, that's not a invitation to act like a maniac or to violently attack people. What that is that is a recognition by our founding fathers that you have a right to your own self-preservation. And that is enshrined in the law of all of the states of this republic and all of the territories of this republic to varying degrees. I know in the state of Pennsylvania, you definitely have a right to self-preservation. Okay? Now, that's all for this video. I think it's an important video, and I think people like James Mason and even Bob Larson, who I truly think is a kook, and a huckster and a charlatan and a lunatic that promotes hatred, I think that Bob Larson is indispensable to the health of our society. Because if people like Bob Larson didn't exist, who else would have had James Mason on? If people like James Mason didn't exist and weren't saying the things that they were saying and weren't allowed to say the things they were saying, you wouldn't have people explaining things the way I am. And that's all for this video.